It begins like a whisper. A person vanishes, seemingly swallowed by the silence of ordinary life. No warning, no trace, no final goodbye. One moment they're here woven into the fabric of their world. The next they're gone. Families left shattered. Investigators chasing shadows. Communities haunted by the echo of a single question. How can someone simply disappear? The disappearance of name isn't just a mystery. It's a puzzle that defies time itself. Despite countless theories, relentless investigations, and desperate pleas for truth, the case remains unsolved. Some say it was a crime meticulously covered up. Others insist it was something far stranger, an unexplained phenomenon beyond our understanding. What really happened that day? Who, if anyone, holds the answers? And why, after all these years, do the pieces of the puzzle still refuse to fit together? This isn't just a story about loss. It's about obsession, unanswered questions, and the chilling reminder that sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Chapter 1: The Vanishing Point. It started as an ordinary day, one that should have slipped quietly into memory. But instead, it became the moment when a name simply vanished, leaving behind only questions, confusion, and an uneasy silence that still lingers. The last confirmed sighting came at specific location, e.g., a bus stop, a friend's house, or walking home, and nothing about their demeanor seemed unusual. No sign of distress, no farewell, just a person going about their daily routine, unaware it would be the final time anyone would ever see them. That moment, in hindsight, has been dissected endlessly. Witnesses tried to recall tiny details, what name was wearing, who might have been nearby, even the tone of their voice. Investigators combed the area, hoping for a clue that could anchor the timeline. But the more people looked, the more elusive the answers became. It was as if name had stepped off the map, crossing an invisible line between presence and absence. The haunting part? Disappearances like this don't happen in a vacuum. Someone always notices something. An odd car parked nearby, a stranger lurking, a conversation cut short. Yet in this case, the accounts contradicted each other, muddying the truth. And so, the mystery began, not with a bang, but with a quiet moment swallowed by uncertainty. Chapter 2: A Life Interrupted. To truly understand the weight of this disappearance, you have to know who a name was before that fateful day. They weren't just a face on a missing persons poster. They had a rhythm to their life, one made of everyday routines, friends they laughed with, family they confided in, dreams they were chasing. And then, in an instant, all of that came to a crashing halt. Friends describe a name as someone who lit up a room, someone whose presence was impossible to ignore. Teachers, co-workers, or neighbors often echoed the same thought. There was nothing about them that suggested a person ready to walk away from it all. No financial crisis, no whispered secrets of trouble brewing beneath the surface. Their life, by all accounts, seemed steady, even promising. That's what makes their absence so chilling. Disappearances often come with warning signs, arguments, stress, sudden changes in behavior. But here there were none. Instead, everything points to a life that should have continued uninterrupted. It's this very absence of motive that has baffled investigators for years. Imagine pausing a movie right before the climax, the characters frozen mid-action, their story left unfinished. That's what it felt like for the people closest to name. A life paused, but never resumed. A story without closure. Chapter 3: The Last Sighting. Every unsolved disappearance has a final breadcrumb, a last known moment that becomes etched in memory like a haunting snapshot. For name, that moment came on specific day, time, and place. Surveillance footage, eyewitness testimony, or maybe just a fleeting glimpse from a passerby. All of it became central to piecing together the puzzle. What's striking is how ordinary it all seemed. Name wasn't panicked, wasn't running, wasn't hiding. They were doing something simple. Walking home, stopping at a corner store, chatting casually on the phone. And yet, this ordinary moment is where the trail abruptly ends. One witness claimed to see name speaking with someone near location. Another insisted they saw nothing unusual at all. And then there's the eerie possibility. What if no one saw the truth, because it unfolded in a sliver of time too fast, too quiet, too easily missed? The last sighting has since become a cornerstone of speculation. Did a name willingly leave with someone they trusted? Were they lured into a trap? Or did something darker unfold just outside the gaze of the camera and community? That's the unsettling truth about last sightings. They anchor us to a moment in time, but they also remind us that after that frame fades to black, we are left only with shadows. Chapter 4, The Search begins. When a name didn't return home at first, it seemed like a small delay. Maybe they had stayed out late, maybe plans had changed. But as the hours dragged on and calls went unanswered, worry began to harden into panic. That's when the search began. Not just a physical one, but an emotional marathon that would stretch days into weeks, and weeks into years. Family members were the first to sound the alarm, reaching out to friends, retracing steps, calling hospitals, and checking every possible place the name might have gone. Soon after, the police were involved. Flyers flooded the community, plastered on lampposts, store windows, and bus stops. Social media lit up with appeals, as people who had never even met name shared posts hoping someone somewhere had seen something. Search parties combed through wooded areas, abandoned buildings, and miles of open land. Dogs trained to track scents were brought in. Helicopters scanned from above. It became a collective effort, fueled by desperation and hope. And yet, despite the sheer scale of the operation, nothing conclusive turned up. Every lead seemed to end in disappointment. Every promising clue unraveled into nothing. For the community, the search became a ritual, an act of love and persistence, even when the silence grew unbearable. Because when someone vanishes, you don't just look for them. You cling to the belief that they can be found. Chapter 5, False Leads and Dead Ends. In almost every disappearance, hope often collides with frustration. For name's case, this meant a flood of tips, leads, and so-called sightings that, at first, sparked excitement, only to crumble under scrutiny. Each phone call to investigators felt like it might be the breakthrough. Each rumor spread through the town like wildfire. But time and again, these turned out to be dead ends. One caller swore they'd seen name at a gas station hours away, but security footage proved it was someone else. Another insisted they heard a voice in the woods that matched name's, but exhaustive searches revealed nothing. Even psychics and self-proclaimed experts came forward, claiming visions and insights, though none produced evidence. False leads can be devastating, not just for investigators but for families clinging to hope. Imagine riding a roller coaster of emotions, soaring when a new tip surfaces, only to crash back down when it dissolves into nothing. Over time, this cycle erodes trust, leaving people wary of even the most promising information. But false leads serve another purpose. They highlight how fragile memory can be, how quickly stories shift, and how desperately people want to solve the unsolvable. And in a way, each dead end only made the central mystery loom larger. Because if all these trails led nowhere, then where did a name really go? Chapter 6, Theories take shape. When official investigations stall, the human mind refuses to accept silence. It begins to fill in the blanks, to imagine possibilities. And in name's case, theories sprouted quickly. Some logical, others chilling, and a few that bordered on the unbelievable. The most common idea was abduction. Had name crossed paths with the wrong person at the wrong time? The lack of evidence suggested a clean, calculated act, carried out with precision. Others argued it could have been voluntary. Maybe name wanted to start fresh, leaving behind a life that appeared perfect on the outside but carried hidden struggles. Then there were darker theories. Was it foul play by someone close? A friend? Co-worker? Or even a stranger who had been watching from the shadows? Without concrete proof, every theory lived in a gray area between possibility and paranoia. Online forums became breeding grounds for speculation. Amateurs pieced together timelines, compared inconsistencies, and even uncovered overlooked details. In some ways, the collective curiosity became its own investigation, one that rivaled the official one. But each theory, no matter how compelling, only led to more questions. And that's the cruelest part of mysteries like this. You can map out endless possibilities, but the truth hides in silence. And until it's uncovered, every theory is both right and wrong. Chapter 7: Media Frenzy. As the mystery of name deepened, the media seized on it like wildfire. What began as local headlines, community rallies for missing name, quickly escalated into national coverage. News vans parked outside the family's home. Cameras flashed. Reporters chased every update, no matter how small, turning the disappearance into a public spectacle. On one hand, the coverage kept name's story alive. Every interview, every broadcast ensured their name wasn't forgotten. Awareness spread far beyond the community, reaching people who otherwise never would have heard about the case. Tips poured in from across the country, even overseas. For the family, it was a bittersweet lifeline. Painful to live under the spotlight, but necessary to keep hope alive. But media attention has a dark edge. Rumors spread faster than facts. Tabloids painted wild theories as truth, fueling speculation and sometimes unfairly pointing fingers. Suddenly, strangers were dissecting every aspect of name's life, relationships, habits, even old social media posts, turning them into fuel for narratives that may or may not have been true. The frenzy created both visibility and distortion, and it left the family walking a fragile line, grateful for awareness, but suffocated by the invasion. For the public, the case became a story, but for those closest to name, it was, and still is, real life, unraveling in front of millions of eyes. Chapter 8: Family in the Spotlight. For the family of name, the disappearance wasn't just a headline. It was a wound that never closed. Overnight, their private grief became a public performance. Every tear shed, every statement given, every nervous glance was captured by cameras and broadcast to the world. At first, the family clung to the attention, believing it could help bring a name back. Press conferences were filled with pleas for information, voices trembling with hope and fear. Parents spoke of sleepless nights, siblings described the emptiness at the dinner table, and friends offered memories that painted name as more than just the missing person. But with the spotlight came suspicion. Reporters pressed uncomfortable questions. Online commentators speculated about the family's behavior. Were they too emotional or not emotional enough? Strangers who knew nothing of their lives dissected their every move. And that, perhaps, was the cruelest twist. In searching for a name, the family themselves became unwilling characters in the story. Despite the scrutiny, they remained steadfast. Candlelight vigils were organized. Fundraisers paid for private searches. Their determination turned grief into action, even when the results never came. To this day, the family's voice is the heartbeat of the case. A reminder that behind the mystery lies love, loss, and an unrelenting will to find answers. Chapter 9: The Haunting Silence. What's most unsettling about name's disappearance isn't just the unanswered questions. It's the silence that followed. No ransom note, no suspicious calls, no cryptic messages left behind. Just nothing. It's as if the world swallowed them whole, erasing every trace. In many missing person cases, there's usually something, a clue, a confession, even a taunt from whoever's responsible. But here, the silence became deafening. Each day without new information deepened the sense of unease. For investigators, it was maddening. For the family, it was torture. And for the community, it created an invisible fog of fear. That silence carried a haunting power. It forced people to wonder, was the name still out there somewhere waiting to be found? Or had the trail grown cold from the very start, doomed to remain unsolved? The absence of answers was almost worse than bad news, because it left endless possibilities wide open. The silence also sparked rumors. Some believed authorities were hiding key information. Others thought name might have left voluntarily, living under a new identity. But with no evidence to confirm or deny any theory, the void only grew larger. And that's the cruel paradox of silence. It can either mean nothing happened, or that something too dark to imagine is being carefully concealed. Chapter 10: Lingering Questions. As time passes, mysteries don't fade. they deepen. And in the case of name, the unanswered questions have become heavier with every year. They hang in the air like ghosts, haunting those who knew name and those who have followed the case from afar. What really happened that night? Was it a chance encounter gone wrong, or something meticulously planned? Why were there no reliable witnesses, no conclusive evidence, no trail to follow? And perhaps the most painful question of all, could a name still be alive, hidden somewhere beyond reach? For the family, these questions cut deep. Each anniversary of name's disappearance reopens the wound. Each new tip feels like a thread of hope, and yet, time and again, it unravels into disappointment. Still, they press forward because the alternative, giving up, would mean accepting a reality they cannot bear. For investigators, the lingering questions are a puzzle unsolved, a mark on the record that won't disappear until the truth does. And for the community, the case has become legend, a story retold in whispers and warnings, a reminder of how quickly ordinary life can fracture. In the end, the greatest tragedy of name's disappearance may not be the event itself, but the silence left behind. A silence filled with questions that may never be answered. Chapter 11: The Community's Fear. When someone vanishes without a trace, it's not only the family who suffers, it's the entire community. After name's disappearance, the town changed almost overnight. Streets that once felt safe suddenly seemed threatening. Parents warned their children not to walk alone. Strangers eyed each other with suspicion, wondering who might be hiding something. Local businesses posted flyers in their windows, and schools held assemblies about safety. Yet, underneath the practical responses, there was a lingering dread. People couldn't shake the feeling that if this could happen to a name, it could happen to anyone. That uncertainty rippled through every corner of the community, changing how people lived their daily lives. Rumors only made the fear worse. Some whispered about a mysterious car seen near the area. Others claimed there had been break-ins or strange figures lurking at night. None of it was ever confirmed, but the stories spread, fueling the sense of paranoia. For many, the mystery became personal. They weren't just searching for a name. They were searching for reassurance, for proof that their own world hadn't suddenly become unsafe. But as days turned into weeks and no answers emerged, the fear didn't go away. It settled into the town like a shadow, one that has never fully lifted. Chapter 12: Investigators Under Pressure. For the detectives assigned to name's disappearance, the clock started ticking the moment the call came in. Every hour that passed without a breakthrough meant the trail grew colder. And in cases like this, pressure doesn't just come from the family, it comes from everywhere. The media wanted updates. The community demanded answers. Supervisors expected results. And beneath it all, the investigators carried the crushing weight of knowing that a person's life might depend on their next move. They retraced steps, interviewed friends and family again and again, and re-examined physical evidence with fresh eyes. Some officers worked late into the night, surviving on stale coffee and adrenaline, hoping that the smallest overlooked detail would suddenly make sense. But the lack of solid leads gnawed at them. One officer later admitted that the hardest part wasn't the workload. It was looking into the eyes of name's family and having no answers. You can imagine how that feels. Wanting to promise hope, but knowing deep down that time was slipping away. The strain also caused tension within the department. Disagreements broke out over strategy. Should they expand the search radius or focus more on the people closest to name? Every decision felt like a gamble. And with the community watching closely, the weight of failure loomed over the entire investigation. Chapter 13: Media Frenzy. As days passed with no breakthrough, the story of name's disappearance began to spread beyond the community. Local news crews parked outside the family home, cameras ready to capture every tear, every statement, every flicker of emotion. What started as a local tragedy soon snowballed into national headlines. The media frenzy had two faces. On one hand, the exposure kept name's story alive. Flyers and pleas for help reached millions who otherwise would never have heard the name. Awareness campaigns surged, and tips started pouring into the hotline at unprecedented levels. Some families in similar situations have said media coverage was the only reason their loved ones were ever found. But on the other hand, the spotlight could be brutal. Reporters asked invasive questions, spinning speculation into fact, and dissecting every rumor like it was hard evidence. Talk shows debated whether Name had simply run away, while others painted the family in a suspicious light. Imagine being desperate for help, only to be portrayed as part of the mystery yourself. The constant coverage also placed added strain on investigators, who were forced to answer questions they didn't yet have answers to. Created a dangerous cycle. More attention meant more pressure, and more pressure often meant mistakes. For Name's loved ones, the media wasn't just a lifeline. It was also a storm they had no choice but to weather. Chapter 14: Theories and Speculation. When the official trail went cold, the unofficial theories began to heat up. The internet became a breeding ground for speculation, with online sleuths dissecting every detail of Name's last known movements. Some theories were grounded in logic. Others bordered on the bizarre. One popular theory suggested foul play, perhaps an abduction by someone close, someone hiding in plain sight. After all, most disappearances, experts note, don't involve strangers. Another theory hinted at a voluntary disappearance, fueled by whispers that Name had been unhappy or seeking escape from something hidden beneath the surface. Then came the darker corners of speculation. Connections to larger criminal networks, trafficking rings, or even conspiracies involving law enforcement mishandling evidence. Each theory, no matter how unlikely, gained traction as desperate viewers searched for answers the official investigation couldn't provide. But speculation has consequences. Every new rumor added pressure to the family, sometimes painting them as villains instead of victims. People they once trusted suddenly found themselves accused online. And while some internet detectives were well-meaning, others chased clout at the expense of truth, spreading narratives that only muddied the waters further. Yet despite the chaos, a lingering question echoed louder with each passing day. Was one of these theories closer to the truth than anyone realized? Or were they all distracting from the answer hiding right in front of us? Chapter 15: False Leads. In the early stages of the investigation, tips poured in from every direction. Some seemed credible, others were little more than whispers overheard in grocery stores or fragments of half-remembered conversations. Each one carried the same fragile hope. Maybe this was the lead that would bring a Name home. Police chased down dozens of these trails. A reported sighting at a bus station. A mysterious phone call from an untraceable number. Even a neighbor who swore they saw someone matching Name's description walking down a country road late at night. Every detail was logged, checked, and, eventually, ruled out. False leads are part of every missing person case, but here they came in waves. Some were intentional, hoaxes meant to mislead investigators or grab attention. Others were simply cases of mistaken identity. Yet each false lead drained resources, wasted precious time, and left the family clinging to a roller coaster of hope and heartbreak. Perhaps the cruelest moment came when a tip suggested Name had been found in another state, alive and safe. The family prepared for reunion, only to discover it was someone else entirely. That emotional whiplash was almost too much to bear. And so the question lingered. Were all these false leads truly meaningless, or was there one, buried in the noise, that had been dismissed too soon? Chapter 16: The Media Frenzy. As the disappearance dragged on, the media descended like a storm. News vans lined the street, reporters crowded the sidewalks, and camera flashes illuminated the family home late into the night. What had once been a quiet neighborhood became a stage for a national spectacle. At first, the coverage felt like an ally. The more people who knew Name's story, the more likely someone might come forward with real information. Posters, interviews, and breaking news alerts spread the case far beyond the community. For a brief moment, it seemed like everyone in the country was looking for answers. But the attention came with a cost. Speculation turned into rumor. Every detail of Name's life was dissected on talk shows and online forums. Old photos were pulled out of context. Strangers debated motives, theories, and even the family's credibility. The line between fact and fiction blurred under the weight of constant commentary. For the family, it was suffocating. They wanted awareness, not exploitation. Yet they couldn't push the cameras away, because what if the media spotlight was the only thing keeping Name's case alive? The frenzy raised a haunting question. Did the glare of publicity help uncover the truth, or did it bury it under layers of noise and speculation? Chapter 17: Community Support and Tensions. In the days after Name's disappearance, the community came together in an extraordinary show of support. Candlelight vigils filled the town square, volunteers organized search parties, and local businesses donated food and supplies for those out scouring fields and forests. Strangers hugged strangers, united by a single hope: bringing Name home. Flyers with Name's face covered telephone poles, shop windows, and even car bumpers. The town felt smaller, closer, as if every person had become a piece of one larger family. For a while, this shared purpose created strength. People who had never spoken before now shared maps, flashlights, and late-night conversations. But as the weeks passed and answers failed to appear, cracks began to show. Some neighbors started pointing fingers, at the police, at outsiders, even at one another. Whispers grew louder, fueled by frustration and fear. Accusations of who wasn't helping enough, or must know something, created quiet divisions. The same unity that once pulled the community together began to splinter under pressure. Some still held on to hope, while others resigned themselves to darker conclusions. Through it all, the family stood at the center of both compassion and scrutiny. They were grateful for the love, yet burdened by the suspicion that seemed to creep into every corner. The town that once promised answers was now wrestling with its own doubts, and trust was slowly unraveling. Chapter 18: False Leads and Dead Ends. Every missing person case seems to attract an endless stream of tips, some hopeful, some outlandish, and some deliberately cruel. Name's disappearance was no exception. The hotline rang day and night, with people claiming they had seen someone who matched Name's description at gas stations, malls, and even across state lines. Each tip felt like a lifeline for the family. They clung to the possibility that just maybe, this time, the lead would take them closer to the truth. Detectives followed up with determination, checking surveillance footage, interviewing witnesses, and driving long hours. But again and again, the results were the same: nothing. Another dead end. The emotional toll was staggering. Imagine the roller coaster, the surge of hope when a new lead came in, followed by the crushing blow when it dissolved into nothing. The family began to dread the phone ringing, torn between wanting answers and fearing disappointment. And then there were the hoaxes. Disturbingly, some people invented stories for attention, calling in with false claims just to feel part of the case. Each wasted lead drained valuable time and energy, time that could have been spent chasing real answers. Still, investigators pressed on, knowing that even one credible tip could change everything. But with each false lead, the shadows around Name's disappearance seemed to grow thicker, and the mystery felt more impenetrable than ever. Chapter 19: The Role of Media Coverage. From the very beginning, the media played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative of Name's disappearance. Local stations covered the story nightly, while regional and eventually national outlets picked it up as the case gained momentum. Each headline, each soundbite, amplified the urgency and pulled more eyes toward the mystery. The family often appeared on camera, holding back tears as they pleaded for their loved one's safe return. These moments were raw and human, striking a chord with audiences far beyond the town. Strangers who had never heard of Name before now felt deeply invested in the search. But media attention is a double-edged sword. While it kept the case alive in the public eye, it also fueled speculation and rumor. Talk shows debated theories, tabloids sensationalized details, and online forums turned into breeding grounds for wild conspiracies. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion, and not all of them were kind. Investigators felt the pressure, too. The constant spotlight made it harder to keep sensitive information private. One misinterpreted comment could spiral into a viral rumor, making their job even more complicated. Still, without the media, the case might have faded into obscurity. The coverage ensured Name's story stayed in the headlines, forcing people to keep asking the same haunting question: where is Name? Chapter 20 Lingering Theories. Years after Name's disappearance, the case remains a puzzle, and with that puzzle comes an endless stream of theories. Some are grounded in logic, others drift into the realm of the bizarre. But each one reveals how deeply the mystery has burrowed into the public imagination. The first and most widely accepted theory is that Name fell victim to foul play, perhaps targeted by someone they knew, or even a stranger passing through town. Investigators leaned heavily on this possibility, but with no evidence, it remains speculation. Another theory suggests a Name left willingly. Could they have chosen to vanish, starting fresh somewhere new? Supporters of this idea point to alleged sightings in distant towns, though none were ever confirmed. Then, of course, there are the more sensational explanations. Some claim Name was abducted by a cult. Others whisper about government cover-ups or shadowy figures who wanted Name silenced. These theories often spiral into conspiracy territory, but they speak to the desperation people feel in the face of unanswered questions. What unites all these theories is a need for closure. Humans crave explanations, even if they're imperfect. And in the absence of hard truth, speculation becomes a way to fill the silence. Yet, every time one theory rises, another challenges it, leaving the truth just out of reach. Chapter 21 Family Perspectives. For the family of Name, the disappearance isn't just a story or a mystery to debate online. It's a wound that never heals, a daily ache that lingers with every sunrise. While strangers trade theories and investigators chase leads, the family wakes each day with the same question. Where is Name? Some family members hold onto hope with unshakable faith. They believe Name is still out there, waiting to be found. For them, every unknown phone call, every face in a crowd, carries the possibility of reunion. It's this hope that keeps them going, through vigils, media interviews, and endless searches. Others in the family lean toward acceptance, acknowledging the possibility that Name may never return. This doesn't mean they've given up. It means they've learned to carry the grief differently. But even in acceptance, the smallest reminder, a song, a scent, a place, can bring the pain rushing back. What's striking is how each family member copes in their own way, yet they remain united by one truth. Their love for Name hasn't faded. In interviews, they speak not just of loss, but of laughter, quirks, and memories, keeping the person alive even when the trail has gone cold. For them, closure isn't just about finding out what happened. It's about reclaiming the missing pieces of their lives. Chapter 22 Media and Myth. From the very beginning, the media played a massive role in shaping the disappearance of Name. Headlines painted the story in bold strokes. Vanished without a trace. A mystery that haunts a town. Each article, each broadcast, added another layer to the public's understanding or misunderstanding of what happened. On one hand, media attention kept the case alive. National coverage drew resources, volunteers, and outside pressure that local authorities might not have sustained on their own. Documentaries, podcasts, and long-form articles ensured the disappearance never completely faded from memory. But on the other hand, media often blurred the lines between fact and speculation. Rumors were amplified. Innocent people were sometimes portrayed with suspicion. And as time passed, the coverage shifted from urgent reporting to something almost mythic. A tragic tale that could be retold again and again. In this way, Name's story became more than a missing person case. It became a cultural phenomenon. It inspired online forums, true crime debates, and even fictional works that borrowed elements of the mystery. The media didn't just document the story, it shaped it. And in shaping it, the disappearance of Name evolved into something larger than life. Yet behind the headlines and documentaries is a family still waiting, and a truth still missing. Chapter 23 Law Enforcement's Final Word. For years, investigators pored over the case of Name, chasing leads that led everywhere and nowhere at once. Files grew thicker, interviews stacked up, and timelines were built and rebuilt. Yet, with all their effort, law enforcement eventually had to face a bitter truth. No definitive answers had surfaced. In press conferences, officials carefully chose their words. They described the case as open and active, but anyone watching could see the weight in their eyes. Detectives admitted frustration. Evidence was thin, suspects elusive, and theories endless. The case seemed to slip further into the shadows with each passing year. Some officers retired before seeing closure, while others still revisit the file from time to time, hoping new technology or a fresh perspective might crack it open. The arrival of DNA databases, improved forensic tools, and digital sleuthing keeps the possibility alive, even decades later. Yet law enforcement's final word, at least for now, is silence. The case remains unsolved, lingering in a limbo between past and present. And that silence leaves the door wide open. Open for speculation, open for rumors, open for the haunting thought that maybe the truth was always there, just overlooked. Chapter 24: The Human Cost. When someone disappears, the impact ripples far beyond the missing person. Friends, family, neighbors, even entire communities carry the weight of that absence. In the case of Name, the human cost has been immeasurable. For the family, daily life fractured into two parts: the time before the disappearance and everything after. Birthdays, holidays, even simple dinners are marked by the empty chair that should have been filled. Parents live with unending questions. Siblings grow older but carry the guilt of moving forward while their loved one is frozen in time. Neighbors who once felt safe began locking their doors at night. Communities that once trusted each other started to look with suspicion. Fear settled in like fog, transforming ordinary routines into acts of caution. Even investigators weren't untouched. Detectives often speak of how certain cases haunt them, and Name's disappearance became one of those ghosts. The lack of closure weighs on everyone involved. The true cost of disappearance isn't just measured in theories or police reports. It's measured in sleepless nights, missed milestones, and generations who grow up with stories instead of answers. And that is perhaps the greatest tragedy. A life missing, and countless others altered forever. Chapter 25: Legacy of the Disappearance. Decades may pass, but the disappearance of Name has left an indelible mark. It is more than an unsolved case. It is a story that continues to shape lives, spark debates, and stir emotions long after the day they vanished. For the family, the legacy is bittersweet. On one hand, their loved one's memory lives on, honored in vigils, fundraisers, and memorials. On the other hand, that same memory is wrapped in uncertainty, forever linked to questions with no answers. For the community, Name's disappearance became a cautionary tale. Safety measures were tightened, children were watched more closely, and trust, once taken for granted, became something earned. The town itself became synonymous with mystery, forever tied to a story it never asked for. Culturally, the legacy expanded far beyond local borders. The case fueled documentaries, podcasts, and countless online discussions. People who never knew Name now speak their name, carrying the story into new generations. The greatest legacy, though, is the reminder of fragility. One moment can change everything. A single disappearance can leave an echo that never fades. And so, the story of Name endures not because it was solved, but because it wasn't. And in that haunting silence, the world is left with a question that refuses to go away. What really happened?